She had worked for years to reach this moment. Every late night, every tough decision, every risk she had taken had led her here. Today, she was going to visit her newly acquired vehicle showroom. It was her business now, a place she had dreamed of owning for a long time. She was proud of herself, proud of how far she had come, and excited to finally see everything in person. The sun was shining brightly that morning and the streets were calm. She drove her sleek black car along the familiar route, her mind buzzing with thoughts about the showroom. She imagined the rows of polished vehicles, the gleaming floors, and the staff bustling around, all working efficiently under her leadership. She imagined walking in and being greeted with smiles, with respect, and with the kind of professional admiration she had earned. As she approached the showroom, her excitement grew. The building looked even better than she had pictured from the outside. The glass windows reflected the sunlight beautifully, and the logo of the company shone proudly at the entrance. She slowed her car as she pulled into the lot, her heart beating faster with anticipation. She was ready to see her empire in action. But as she stepped out of her car, something felt off. There was a tension in the air, subtle but noticeable. One of the staff members glanced at her with suspicion, frowning slightly as she approached the entrance. She smiled politely, expecting a friendly acknowledgement, but instead she noticed the hesitation in their movements. "Good morning," she said warmly. "I'm here to see the showroom." The staff member shifted uncomfortably and muttered something under their breath. She frowned slightly, but she didn't let it bother her. Sometimes people were just nervous around new leadership. She took a few steps closer to the door, expecting the manager to greet her and guide her inside. Then he appeared. The manager was a tall man with a stern expression. He looked at her with a mixture of doubt and suspicion.
"Can I help you?"
he asked, his tone cold and questioning. She smiled, holding up her hand to show a polite gesture of introduction. "Yes, I'm the new owner of this showroom," she said. "I'd like to take a look around." The manager blinked as if he hadn't heard her correctly. He squinted at her, his face hardening. "I'm sorry," he said slowly. "I don't think you're supposed to be here. This is a private area. Only authorized personnel are allowed." Her heart skipped a beat, not because of fear, but because of disbelief. "Excuse me?" she asked, her voice steady but filled with surprise. "I am the owner. I just acquired this dealership. I have full authority here." The manager shook his head, stepping slightly in front of her, blocking the entrance. "I'm not sure who told you that, but you can't just walk in here. This is a professional environment. We have procedures." She blinked, trying to understand what was happening. How could this man not recognize her? How could he not know that she was in charge? She had the documents, the proof of purchase, the official papers that confirmed she owned the showroom. Yet here she was, being treated as if she were an intruder. Her chest tightened with frustration. She had faced many challenges in her life, but this felt personal, humiliating even. She had worked hard to build her reputation, to earn respect, and now she was being turned away from her own business by someone who didn't seem to care about facts. She took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. "I have the documents right here," she said, pulling out a folder from her bag. She handed it to the manager, expecting him to glance at it and apologize immediately, but he didn't. Instead, he frowned and took the folder reluctantly. He flipped through the papers slowly, as if doubting their authenticity. His eyes scanned the documents, but his expression remained skeptical. "This doesn't prove anything," he said finally, handing them back. "Anyone could have these papers. I need confirmation from corporate." She felt a surge of anger but forced herself to remain composed. This was not just about authority. It was about respect, about being recognized for who she was and what she had achieved. She had never allowed anyone to treat her like this, and she would not start now. "I can call corporate myself," she said firmly. "I am the owner, and I have every right to be here. You are required to let me in." The manager's face darkened and he stepped even closer, towering over her as if trying to intimidate her. "I don't make the rules. I follow them," he said. "Until I get confirmation, you cannot enter." She took a moment to look around. Other staff members were watching quietly, some shifting uncomfortably in their positions. She noticed a few glances that seemed apologetic, as if they knew this was wrong but didn't know how to act. That gave her a small sense of hope. She wasn't alone, even if the manager wanted to make it feel that way. Her mind raced. She thought about all the times she had faced doubt, prejudice, and discrimination. She had learned to stay calm, to use her intelligence and composure as her weapons. She would not allow anger to take over, not now, not when she was standing in her own business fighting for respect. She straightened her shoulders and spoke clearly, her voice firm but polite. I am the owner of this showroom. You are legally obligated to recognize my authority. Refusing me entry is unacceptable. If you continue to deny me, I will have no choice but to escalate this situation. The manager hesitated. She could see the conflict in his eyes. He was trying to maintain control, trying to assert dominance, but he also knew she was not someone who could be easily dismissed. He looked at the staff members for support, but they remained silent. No one stepped forward to back him up. She could feel the tension in the air, thick and heavy. Every second felt like a test of patience, of endurance. She knew that how she handled this moment would set the tone for her leadership. If she reacted with anger, it could escalate. If she stayed calm and professional, she could turn the situation around and assert her authority without losing respect. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the manager sighed. He looked at her with a mixture of frustration and defeat. Fine, he said reluctantly. I'll call corporate, but don't expect them to make a decision immediately. She nodded, her expression composed. Thank you. I appreciate your cooperation. While he was on the phone, she took a moment to observe the showroom from the outside. The cars gleamed in the sunlight, reflecting her own determination and resilience. She reminded herself why she had worked so hard, why she had persevered through challenges that had seemed impossible. This was her dream, her achievement, and no one had the right to diminish it. As the manager spoke quietly on the phone, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. She had faced this challenge before in different forms. She had been underestimated, ignored, and dismissed countless times in her career. But she had always found a way to assert herself, to rise above the doubt and prove her worth. Today would be no different. A few staff members watched her with admiration, recognizing the quiet strength and dignity she carried. Some of them exchanged glances, realizing that this was a defining moment, not just for her, but for the culture of the showroom. How they treated her now would set an example for everyone who came after. The manager finally hung up the phone, looking flustered. Corporate confirmed, he said reluctantly. You can enter. But please keep this professional. She smiled politely, though her eyes were sharp with the message that he would never forget. Thank you. I will always act professionally. I expect the same respect in return. As she stepped inside the showroom, the tension began to ease slightly. The staff went back to their work, though their eyes still lingered on her with a mix of curiosity and admiration. She walked through the rows of vehicles, taking in the polished floors, the sleek designs, and the bustling environment. This was her domain, and finally she was being recognized for it. Yet even as she moved forward, she knew this was only the beginning. There were lessons to be learned, attitudes to be changed, and respect to be earned, not just by her but by everyone who worked under her leadership. This incident had revealed cracks in the culture, but it had also given her the opportunity to set things right, to lead with authority, compassion, and unwavering confidence. For now, though, she allowed herself a small moment of triumph. She had been turned away, doubted, and underestimated, but she had remained composed. She had stood her ground, and she had entered her own showroom with dignity intact. That alone was a victory, a reminder of the power she carried, the journey she had traveled, and the remarkable achievements that had brought her here. This was the first day of many, and she knew the challenges ahead would not be easy. But as she looked around the showroom, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She would ensure that respect, professionalism, and integrity were the cornerstones of her business, and she would never allow anyone to make her feel like an outsider in her own world again. Once she was inside the showroom, she realized that the situation was more complicated than she had first thought. The manager, who had tried to block her entry, had left a noticeable tension in the air. Staff members moved around quietly, some avoiding her gaze while others whispered to each other, clearly uncomfortable with what had just happened. She could feel their unease, but she also sensed curiosity. They wanted to see how she would handle the situation. She walked calmly through the showroom, taking in the rows of cars and the polished floors. Everything looked beautiful, but she couldn't ignore the uncomfortable energy lingering in the space. She had worked too hard to build her career to let this go unnoticed. She had built her reputation on professionalism and resilience, and now it was time to assert herself in this environment. The manager approached her, his face a mask of forced composure. He tried to appear confident, but there was an edge of tension in his voice. "Since you're here," he said, "I suppose you can look around. But please don't interfere with the staff. We have procedures in place." She nodded politely, keeping her voice calm but firm. "I understand procedures," she said. "But procedures do not give anyone the right to question my authority or disrespect me. I expect to be treated with the same professionalism that I show to everyone here." The manager stiffened. He wasn't used to being spoken to like this. Most people would have backed down or accepted his attitude without question, but she was different. She had faced doubt and bias before, and she had always responded with calm strength, not anger. That strength made him uneasy, and she could see it. As she continued walking through the showroom, she noticed the staff whispering among themselves. Some were clearly worried about the tension, while others looked inspired by her poise. She understood that what she did next would set the tone for the entire workplace. It was not just about this moment. It was about shaping a culture of respect and professionalism for everyone under her leadership. She stopped near one of the newest cars, a sleek model that had just arrived. She ran her hand lightly over the hood, feeling the smooth metal beneath her fingers. It was a reminder of why she was here, why she had worked so hard to reach this point. She was the owner, and these vehicles represented her dream realized. Yet her excitement was mixed with frustration over how she had been treated just moments ago. The manager hovered nearby, clearly unsure of what to do. He opened his mouth to say something, then closed it again. She decided to take the initiative. "I want to have a conversation with everyone here," she said, her voice calm but carrying authority. "It's important that we understand each other and establish a clear standard for how we work together." The staff gathered around reluctantly at first, but as they saw her composed demeanor, more people stepped closer. There was curiosity in their eyes, a desire to understand the situation and learn from it. She could feel their attention, and she knew this was her moment to lead by example. "I understand that changes can be challenging," she began, looking at each person in the room. "I also understand that sometimes people make assumptions about others. But in this workplace, assumptions are not acceptable. Respect is not optional. Everyone here deserves to be treated fairly, and everyone is expected to treat others with professionalism." She paused, letting her words sink in. Some of the staff nodded subtly, while others looked uncomfortable as if they were realizing the gravity of the situation for the first time. She continued, choosing her words carefully. "What happened outside," she said, "should never have happened. I was denied entry to my own business. That is not acceptable, and it will not happen again. But I am not here to punish anyone. I am here to ensure that this workplace is fair, respectful, and welcoming for everyone, including our customers, our staff, and myself." There was silence for a moment. She could sense the staff processing her words. Some were embarrassed, realizing that they had been part of the uncomfortable moment. Others seemed inspired by her calm handling of the situation. She knew that true leadership was not about reacting with anger. It was about setting an example, showing strength and teaching others how to behave. One of the staff members finally spoke up, a young woman who had been standing quietly near the back. We didn't know," she said softly. "We didn't realize it was you. Her voice trailed off, unsure how to continue. She smiled gently, understanding the fear and confusion behind the words. "I understand," she said. "Mistakes happen, but it's important that we learn from them. Respect is not just about titles or positions. It's about how we treat each other every day. That is what will make this workplace strong and successful." The manager, who had been standing silently, looked uncomfortable. He shifted from foot to foot, clearly aware that he had crossed a line. She addressed him directly, her voice firm but not harsh. "You have responsibilities as a manager," she said. "Part of those responsibilities is ensuring that everyone, including me, is treated with respect. Your actions outside were unacceptable, and they do not reflect the standards we expect here. Moving forward, you must lead by example, or there will be consequences." He nodded, his expression tight. There was no arguing with her. She had made her expectations clear, and there was no room for debate. The staff looked on, realizing that she was serious, and that the tone of the workplace had shifted in that moment. She took a deep breath and shifted her focus back to the staff, I am here to lead this company to success, but I cannot do it alone. I need each of you to understand your roles, your responsibilities, and the importance of professionalism. Together we can create a workplace that is respected, admired, and successful. But that requires honesty, respect, and dedication from everyone. The staff members began to nod more confidently. Some whispered quietly to each other, clearly discussing how this new leadership style was different from what they had expected. She noticed a few smiles, small gestures of approval, and it gave her hope that her message was being received. Then she added something more personal, to emphasize her commitment. I have faced challenges in my life just like many of you have. I have been underestimated, dismissed, and doubted. But I have always moved forward with dignity and patience. That is how I expect us to work together here, supporting each other, learning from mistakes, and never allowing disrespect or discrimination to define our workplace. She paused again, letting her words sink in. There was a sense of reflection among the staff. Some were thinking about their own actions and assumptions, while others were considering how this approach would change their daily interactions. She had created a moment of clarity, a turning point for the culture of the showroom. A few moments later, the manager spoke, his voice quieter now, stripped of its previous confidence. I understand, he said. I will make sure it doesn't happen again. She nodded, acknowledging his response. Good, that is all I ask. Remember, leadership is not about control. It's about respect and accountability. Treat others well and success will follow. Treat them poorly and you will face consequences. The choice is yours. The staff seemed to settle down after that. The initial tension that had filled the room began to fade, replaced by a cautious sense of respect and awareness. She could see that the moment had been transformative, not just for the manager, but for everyone in the showroom. She continued walking through the rows of cars, observing the quality of the vehicles, the organization of the showroom, and the workflow of the staff. She made mental notes of areas that needed improvement, but she also took time to acknowledge what was done well. She believed in recognizing effort, encouraging growth, and building confidence among her team. Throughout it all, she maintained her calm composure. She knew that leadership was not about showing anger or asserting dominance aggressively. It was about standing firm, being consistent, and modeling the behavior she expected from others. By the time she finished her walk through the showroom, she felt a sense of accomplishment. The initial confrontation, though challenging, had set the stage for a new era in her business. She had asserted her authority, established clear expectations, and begun to reshape the workplace culture in a positive way. She knew there would be more challenges ahead. Changing attitudes, enforcing standards, and maintaining respect would take time and effort. But she was ready. She had faced prejudice, bias, and doubt throughout her life, and she had always emerged stronger. This was no different. As she left the showroom later that day, she took one last look at the staff. Some smiled at her, others nodded in acknowledgement, and she felt a quiet satisfaction. Today had been difficult, but it had also been a step forward. She had proven that respect and professionalism were non-negotiable, and she had reminded everyone in the room that leadership comes with responsibility, not just for profits, but for people. She got into her car, her mind buzzing with plans for the future. There would be meetings, improvements, and perhaps more challenges like this one. But she was ready. She had handled the confrontation with composure, set clear boundaries, and begun to inspire change. And most importantly, she had done it without compromising her dignity, her values, or her vision for the company. As she drove away from the showroom, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had faced resistance and doubt, but she had also demonstrated strength, patience, and leadership. She knew that the days ahead would require persistence, but she was confident in her ability to guide her team, shape the workplace culture, and lead her business to success. The incident outside had been shocking, even painful, but it had also been an opportunity, a chance to show the staff what true leadership looked like. She had not just asserted her authority. She had begun to plant the seeds of respect, professionalism, and accountability that would grow into a strong, successful company culture. And with that thought, she smiled, knowing that the best was yet to come. The day after the confrontation, the atmosphere in the showroom felt different. The staff moved with a mix of curiosity, caution, and unease. Some whispered quietly among themselves, replaying the events of the previous day. while others tried to go about their work as if nothing had happened. But the memory of the CEO being turned away and then asserting her authority lingered in the air. Everyone knew that something significant had changed. One of the employees, a young man who had been standing by when the CEO arrived, decided to record a short video on his phone. He didn't want to cause trouble. He simply felt the need to capture the moment, to remember how the CEO had handled the manager's behavior. As he watched her calm demeanor and clear authority, he realized it was an important lesson, not just for him, but for everyone. Later that morning, the employee showed the video to a few colleagues in private. They were shocked all over again at how the manager had acted and at how the CEO had remained composed. The whispers grew louder, and soon the video began circulating quietly among staff members. Everyone who saw it understood the gravity of the incident and the lessons it held. Meanwhile, the CEO was busy with the operational side of the showroom. She was reviewing inventory, checking the condition of vehicles, and making notes about improvements that needed to be made. Despite the lingering tension from the previous day, she remained calm and professional. She knew that leadership was not just about enforcing authority. It was about consistency, diligence, and showing respect to everyone in the business. Suddenly, her phone rang. It was a call from corporate headquarters. The voice on the other end was serious but polite. "We received your report regarding the manager's behavior," the representative said. "We are taking this very seriously and will conduct a full investigation. Please provide any evidence you have, including witness statements and any recordings of the incident." The CEO took a deep breath. She had anticipated this step, and she had already collected documents, proof of purchase, and statements from staff members who had witnessed the confrontation. "I have everything prepared," she said calmly. "I want this matter addressed swiftly and fairly." The corporate representative assured her that they would handle the investigation promptly. "We will review the evidence and take appropriate action," they said. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Your professionalism and diligence are noted." After hanging up, the CEO reflected on how far she had come. She had worked tirelessly to reach this position, and she knew that handling this situation with composure was essential. She also knew that the outcome would not only affect her, but would set a precedent for how employees were treated throughout the company. As the investigation began, the video that the staff member had recorded started to spread beyond the showroom. A few staff shared it with other colleagues in different branches, and soon it became clear that this incident was more than just an internal matter. It highlighted the need for respect, fairness, and proper treatment in the workplace. The CEO's composure and professionalism became the focus, and the manager's actions were scrutinized from every angle. Back in the showroom, the manager grew increasingly anxious. He knew that his behavior had been unacceptable, and he feared the consequences. He avoided eye contact with the staff and tried to focus on his work, but the whispers and stares reminded him constantly of the mistake he had made. He realized that this was not just a minor incident. It was a turning point in his career. One of the staff members, noticing his discomfort, approached him cautiously. "You should have treated her with respect," she said softly. "Everyone knows that now. You can't undo what happened, but you can learn from it." The manager nodded, swallowing hard. He knew she was right, but he also understood that the corporate investigation could change everything for him. He could be disciplined, demoted, or even fired. The thought of losing his position weighed heavily on him. Meanwhile, the CEO continued her work, balancing her attention between operations and the unfolding investigation. She made it a point to speak to staff individually, thanking them for their honesty and for supporting a respectful workplace. She wanted them to know that she valued their integrity and that their voices mattered. This approach not only strengthened her relationship with the team, but also reinforced the culture of accountability she was striving to create. Days passed, and the investigation progressed. Corporate reviewed the video, interviewed witnesses, and examined statements from all sides. They noted the manager's dismissive behavior, the unnecessary confrontation, and the CEO's calm and professional handling of the situation. It became clear that the manager had acted unprofessionally and had violated company standards. During this time, some of the staff who had been hesitant initially began to feel empowered. They realized that standing up for respect and fairness was not only right, but also recognized and valued by leadership. The CEO's example showed them that integrity, patience, and professionalism could overcome even the most challenging circumstances. The manager tried to maintain a sense of control, but it was clear that his position was in jeopardy. He approached the CEO hesitantly one afternoon. "I want to apologize," he said, his voice quiet. "I realize I acted improperly yesterday. I didn't mean any disrespect, but I understand that I did, and I'm sorry." She listened calmly, her expression neutral but firm. "Apologies are a start," she said, "but actions speak louder than words. Respect and professionalism are not optional. They are required in this workplace. I hope this serves as a lesson not just for you, but for everyone here." He nodded, knowing she was right. It was a moment of reckoning for him, one that he would not forget. He understood that leadership demanded accountability, and that his behavior had consequences beyond just himself. The staff watched the interaction quietly. Some felt relieved that the CEO handled the apology professionally, while others felt inspired to follow her example in their own roles. The incident had become more than just a conflict. It had become a teaching moment, showing the importance of integrity, composure, and respect in a professional setting. As the investigation concluded, corporate called the CEO for a final discussion. "We have reviewed all evidence," the representative said. "The manager's behavior was unacceptable. Appropriate action has been taken to address this situation. We appreciate your patience and professionalism throughout this process." The CEO felt a sense of vindication. She had handled the incident with calm and dignity, ensuring that fairness and respect were upheld. She also knew that this outcome would set a precedent, demonstrating that discrimination, disrespect, or unprofessional behavior would not be tolerated under her leadership. Back at the showroom, the staff were informed of the outcome. The manager was disciplined, and the CEO addressed the team again, reinforcing her expectations. "Today is a reminder that respect is non-negotiable," she said. "Our workplace must be fair, inclusive, and professional at all times. Everyone here has a role in maintaining that standard." The staff listened attentively, many of them nodding in agreement. The atmosphere in the showroom began to shift. The tension from before was replaced with a cautious optimism. Employees started to see that their voices mattered, that fairness and professionalism were valued, and that the CEO was committed to creating a respectful environment. The incident also became a story of empowerment. Word of the confrontation and its resolution spread quietly among other branches, highlighting the importance of standing firm while maintaining professionalism. The CEO's example inspired others to act with integrity and to challenge unfair behavior in their own workplaces. Even the manager, though shaken, began to reflect on his actions. He realized that true leadership was not about asserting authority through fear or disrespect, but about guiding others with fairness, empathy, and accountability. The lessons from this incident would stay with him for a long time. Meanwhile, the CEO focused on moving forward. She continued to review operations, meet with staff, and plan improvements to the showroom. She knew that her business was more than just vehicles. It was a culture, a community, and a representation of her values. She was determined to lead with integrity and to ensure that her workplace was a place where respect and professionalism were always prioritized. As the days passed, the showroom began to feel more cohesive. Staff members interacted with each other more openly. Customers noticed the professional environment, and the culture of respect that the CEO had established started to take root. The incident that had once caused tension became a turning point, a lesson in leadership, fairness, and the importance of standing firm in the face of disrespect. Looking back, the CEO realized that the confrontation, though difficult, had strengthened her resolve. She had demonstrated that even in the face of bias, disrespect, or doubt, calm, composed leadership could prevail. She had protected her authority, upheld her values, and set a powerful example for everyone in the showroom. And as she walked through the rows of vehicles that afternoon, she felt a quiet satisfaction. The journey had been challenging, but she had emerged stronger, more respected, and more determined than ever to lead her business with dignity, integrity, and vision. The staff, having witnessed her composure and strength, began to understand the kind of leadership she embodied. They realized that respect, professionalism, and accountability were not just words, they were actions, and they were essential to the success of the business. In the end, The CEO's handling of the situation had transformed the workplace. The manager's inappropriate behavior had been exposed and addressed. The staff had learned valuable lessons, and a culture of respect and professionalism had been reinforced. What began as a moment of tension had become a catalyst for positive change, showing that integrity, patience, and leadership could overcome even the most challenging obstacles. The next morning, the showroom felt charged with tension. The previous day's events had stirred emotions, and everyone sensed that something important was about to happen. Staff members moved quietly, some casting nervous glances at the manager who seemed unusually tense. He had tried to maintain control, but the weight of his actions and the corporate investigation hung heavily over him. The CEO arrived early, as always, her presence commanding attention without a word. She walked through the showroom with calm assurance, observing the staff, the vehicles, and the general environment. Her mind was focused on the resolution of the situation. She knew that action needed to be decisive. This was not a time for delay or indecision. Respect and professionalism had to be reinforced immediately. The manager was summoned to the main office. He entered hesitantly, unsure of what to expect. The CEO was already there, standing by the desk with a composed yet authoritative expression. She did not need to raise her voice or display anger. Her posture and gaze alone communicated that she was in control. "Have a seat," she said calmly, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. The manager obeyed, fidgeting slightly in his seat. He had reviewed the video multiple times, replaying every detail, and he knew the evidence was clear. His actions had been inappropriate, dismissive, and unprofessional. "I've reviewed the investigation and I have also watched the recording of the incident," the CEO began. "It's clear that your behavior outside the showroom was unacceptable. You questioned my authority, refused entry, and disrespected not only me but the standards of this workplace." The manager shifted uneasily. I didn't mean any harm," he said. "I was just following protocol. I didn't realize it was you at first." She remained calm, her voice steady. "Intentions matter, but actions have consequences. What happened cannot be ignored. Your behavior violated the standards of professionalism and respect that I expect in this showroom. Protocol does not give anyone the right to undermine or disrespect leadership. That is a fundamental rule." He swallowed hard, realizing that apologies alone would not be enough to rectify the situation. The CEO continued, her tone firm but measured. "Leadership is about responsibility, accountability, and setting an example. Every employee in this showroom looks to their managers for guidance, respect, and fairness. When a manager acts in a way that undermines these values, it impacts the entire team, the workplace culture, and the success of this business." The manager nodded, but his expression was tense. He knew that this was a critical moment in his career. The CEO's words left no room for negotiation or excuses. He had crossed a line and there would be consequences. "Because of the severity of your actions," the CEO said, "and after consulting with corporate headquarters, I have made a decision regarding your position." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. The manager's heart sank. He could feel the tension in the room and knew what was coming. "I understand," he said quietly, bracing himself. "You are being terminated effective immediately," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Your behavior was unacceptable and it cannot be tolerated. I expect all employees, regardless of position, to act with professionalism and respect at all times. This decision is final." The manager's eyes widened slightly. He had anticipated discipline, perhaps a warning but not immediate termination. The reality of the situation hit him hard. He felt a mix of shock, regret, and anxiety about the future. The CEO continued, maintaining her composure. "This is not personal. It is about accountability and standards. Leadership requires integrity, and your actions did not align with the expectations of this role. I hope this serves as a lesson both for you and for the staff here about the importance of respect and professionalism." He nodded silently, acknowledging the decision. There were no words that could undo the consequences of his actions. He gathered his belongings quietly, avoiding eye contact, and left the office without protest. The room felt heavy with the significance of the moment. As the manager left, the CEO turned her attention to the staff, who had been watching from nearby offices. She wanted to ensure that this moment was understood as more than just a disciplinary action. It was a reinforcement of the values that would define the showroom moving forward. "Let this be clear to everyone," she said, her voice carrying through the space. "Respect, professionalism, and accountability are not optional here. Everyone, regardless of position, is expected to uphold these standards. Disrespect and unprofessional behavior will not be tolerated under my leadership." The staff listened, attentively, some nodding quietly, others exchanging glances. They understood the gravity of the situation and the message it sent. This was not just about one incident. It was about shaping the culture of the workplace and ensuring that fairness and integrity were upheld at all times. After addressing the staff, the CEO returned to her regular responsibilities. She checked on operations, reviewed the showroom, and met with employees individually to discuss workflow and improvements. Her calm and composed demeanor reassured the team, showing that leadership could be firm, yet supportive. Over the next few days, the impact of the manager's termination became evident. Staff members felt a renewed sense of respect for leadership and for each other. The tension that had lingered since the initial confrontation began to fade, replaced by a cautious optimism. Employees recognized that the CEO valued integrity, fairness, and professionalism, and they began to adjust their behavior accordingly. Some employees admitted to themselves that they had witnessed or even participated in small behaviors that could be considered disrespectful. Seeing the consequences faced by the manager encouraged them to reflect on their actions and commit to higher standards. It was a moment of self-awareness and growth, prompted by the CEO's decisive and fair approach. The CEO also took the time to recognize the employees who had acted with integrity. She thanked them for supporting a respectful workplace, for standing by the values she had set, and for helping to maintain a professional environment. These acknowledgments reinforced positive behavior and motivated the team to continue striving for excellence. Meanwhile, the showroom's reputation began to shift. Customers who had heard about the incident and its resolution admired the CEO's handling of the situation. They saw a leader who was composed, fair, and committed to creating a professional and respectful environment. This added to the credibility of the business and reinforced the importance of strong, principled leadership. The manager's departure also served as a reminder that actions have consequences. Staff members understood that disrespect, bias, or unprofessional behavior would not be tolerated. This lesson, though difficult for the manager to face, became a cornerstone of the showroom's culture. Employees felt empowered to hold each other accountable, knowing that leadership valued integrity above all else. In the weeks that followed, the CEO continued to work closely with the staff to strengthen the showroom's operations and culture. She introduced regular meetings to discuss standards, expectations, and improvements. She encouraged open communication and made it clear that everyone's voice mattered, as long as it was expressed respectfully and professionally. The staff began to respond positively. They were more confident in their roles, more willing to take responsibility, and more respectful toward each other and their leadership. The showroom began to function smoothly, with a renewed sense of collaboration and mutual respect. Reflecting on the events, the CEO recognized that the manager's termination, though difficult, had been necessary. It had reinforced the importance of accountability and professionalism and had sent a clear message to the team. Leadership was about setting an example, and sometimes tough decisions were required to uphold the standards that ensured long-term success. She also realized that her own composure and calm leadership had been instrumental in resolving the situation. By handling the confrontation with dignity, she had demonstrated the qualities of a strong leader: confidence, fairness, and integrity. These qualities not only influenced the staff but also inspired them to follow her example. As the showroom settled into its new rhythm, the CEO felt a sense of satisfaction. The incident that had started with tension and discomfort had been transformed into a defining moment for the business. Respect, accountability, and professionalism had been reaffirmed, and the staff had gained a renewed sense of purpose and understanding. She walked through the showroom one afternoon, observing the employees working efficiently and interacting respectfully. She knew that challenges would continue to arise, but she felt confident that the culture she was building would endure. The lessons learned from the confrontation and the manager's termination would guide the team and shape the future of the showroom. And as she stood among the polished vehicles, the staff moving around her with renewed energy and focus, she smiled quietly. Leadership was never easy, but it was always worth it. By standing firm, acting with integrity, and making difficult decisions when necessary, she had protected her authority, upheld her values, and strengthened the foundation of her business. This was more than a victory. It was a turning point. The showroom was no longer just a place of business. It was a place where respect, professionalism, and accountability were tangible, lived values, and the CEO knew that moving forward, these values would guide every decision, every interaction, and every success that lay ahead. After the manager was dismissed, the atmosphere in the showroom slowly began to shift. The tension that had once lingered was replaced by a sense of clarity and purpose. Staff members walked with a more confident stride, greeted each other with respect, and carried out their tasks with renewed energy. They had seen firsthand that actions had consequences, and that leadership demanded accountability. The CEO knew that the work was far from over. Firing the manager had been a decisive step, but it was only the beginning of cultivating the culture she wanted in her business. She understood that true leadership required constant attention, empathy, and reinforcement. She spent the morning walking through the showroom, observing employees as they worked, offering words of encouragement, and listening to their concerns. "Thank you for your dedication," she told one of the staff members polishing a car. "I appreciate the care you put into your work. Attention to detail makes a difference not just for our customers, but for all of us who take pride in this showroom." The employee smiled, feeling seen and valued. These small interactions were powerful, she knew. Leadership was not only about making tough decisions, but also about recognizing the efforts of others and inspiring them to do their best. Later that day, she gathered the entire team in the main area of the showroom. The employees, still a little nervous from recent events, settled into their positions, waiting to hear what she had to say. She wanted this meeting to be more than just a speech. She wanted it to be a moment that reinforced the values of respect, professionalism, and teamwork. "I want to take a moment to talk about what happened recently," she began, her voice calm but authoritative. "It was a difficult situation, but it taught us all an important lesson. Respect, accountability, and professionalism are the foundation of this business. They are not optional. They are what allow us to succeed together." She looked around at each employee, meeting their eyes with sincerity. Leadership is not about power or control. It's about responsibility, fairness, and integrity. When someone fails to uphold these standards, it affects everyone. That is why we took the actions we did. And it is why I am asking all of you to join me in creating a workplace where everyone feels valued, respected, and empowered. The staff listened attentively, many nodding quietly. Some exchanged glances, realizing that this was not just about past mistakes. It was about the future of their workplace and the example they wanted to set for themselves and for each other. She continued, emphasizing the importance of teamwork. "We are a team. Every role, every action, and every interaction matters. Treat your colleagues with respect. Support one another. Speak up if something feels wrong. And always remember that professionalism is the key to our success. Together, we can create a showroom that is admired not just for our vehicles, but for the values we uphold." The employees were visibly inspired. They had seen her handle difficult situations with poise, fairness, and strength. They had witnessed the consequences of unprofessional behavior. And now they understood that maintaining respect and accountability was essential for a healthy, successful work environment. Over the next few weeks, the CEO focused on strengthening the culture she envisioned. She implemented regular meetings to discuss workplace standards, encouraged open communication, and created opportunities for employees to provide feedback. She wanted everyone to feel heard, supported, and empowered to contribute positively to the showroom. One afternoon, a staff member approached her quietly. "Thank you for how you handled everything," the employee said. "It wasn't easy to see what happened with the manager, but you showed us how to stand firm and act with integrity. It has inspired all of us." The CEO smiled warmly. "I'm glad to hear that. Remember, leadership is about actions, not just words. We all have the power to make this a respectful and successful workplace. Keep supporting each other, and we will achieve great things together. The staff member left with renewed determination, a feeling shared by many others in the showroom. They began to interact more respectfully with each other, assist colleagues more willingly, and approach their work with greater pride. The CEO's consistent guidance and example had created a ripple effect, transforming the workplace culture in tangible ways. The impact of the incident and its resolution extended beyond the showroom walls. Word spread quietly through the industry about the CEO's leadership and her commitment to fairness and professionalism. Customers, business partners, and other leaders began to recognize the showroom not only for its vehicles, but also for the values it represented. Integrity, respect, and accountability became synonymous with the brand. One morning, the CEO took a moment to walk through the showroom and observe the team at work. The employees were engaged, confident, and cooperative. She noticed a young salesperson helping a new team member learn the layout of the showroom, another employee assisting a colleague with a maintenance task, and a technician checking inventory with meticulous attention. Each small act of collaboration reflected the culture she had been building. She paused for a moment, reflecting on the journey. The confrontation with the manager had been challenging, stressful, and even disheartening at first. But it had become a turning point. It had exposed weaknesses, highlighted the importance of leadership, and allowed her to establish a foundation of respect and accountability that would endure. The CEO also knew that consistency was key. One incident alone could not change behavior permanently. Leadership required vigilance, reinforcement, and encouragement. She continued to meet regularly with employees, address concerns, and celebrate achievements. Her approach was firm but fair, authoritative but approachable. She wanted the team to know that respect and professionalism were expected, but that they were also appreciated and recognized when demonstrated. As weeks turned into months, the transformation in the showroom became increasingly visible. Staff members were more confident in their roles. Customers noticed the professionalism and courtesy, and the workplace operated more smoothly than ever before. The CEO had not only addressed the immediate issue, but had also built a culture of accountability, collaboration, and integrity that would sustain long-term success. One day, she gathered the team once again for a short meeting. "I am proud of what we have accomplished together," she said. "We have faced challenges, but we have also learned important lessons. Remember, every interaction, every decision, and every action reflects who we are as a team. Let us continue to uphold the values we have established and support one another in achieving success." The employees listened attentively, inspired by her words. They had seen her handle difficult situations with grace and strength, and they understood the importance of following her example. Respect, professionalism, and accountability were no longer abstract ideas. They were lived experiences, embedded in the daily operations of the showroom. The CEO walked through the showroom afterward, observing the employees at work. She felt a sense of satisfaction and quiet pride. The challenges she had faced had tested her leadership, but she had remained composed, fair, and unwavering in her commitment to values. The staff had responded, the culture had shifted, and the business was stronger as a result. She paused in front of a row of vehicles, reflecting on how far she had come. Owning the showroom had been a dream, but leading it successfully required more than just ownership. It required integrity, vision, and the ability to inspire others. She had proven that true leadership involved standing firm in the face of challenges, making difficult decisions when necessary, and fostering a culture of respect and accountability. As the day drew to a close, the CEO walked out of the showroom feeling confident in the foundation she had built. The employees continued their work, now guided by the principles she had reinforced and inspired to uphold. The showroom was not only a place of business, but a place where values mattered, where respect was given and earned, and where leadership set the standard for everyone. The story of the manager's dismissal, the confrontation, and the subsequent transformation became an example for everyone involved. It demonstrated that challenges could be opportunities, that disrespect could be corrected with fairness and composure, and that strong leadership could inspire positive change. The CEO knew that more challenges would come, but she felt prepared. She had faced adversity with confidence, set a clear example for her team, and reinforced the values that would guide the showroom forward. Her leadership had transformed not just